MMA True Believers. I am Jason Burgos for Sherdog.com. And in this latest edition of the Coronavirus Chronicles, I have a guest who is in an unfortunate part of a new wave of fighters having bouts postponed because of the coronavirus pandemic. A week ago, it seemed likely he would be competing on April 25th at what I guess would have been UFC Tachi Palace Casino 2? I don't know. But now, with the news of UFC 249, upcoming events all postponed, we're going to have to wait a little longer for him to follow up that impressive UFC debut in December. To some, as you see, he's known as the Cat Daddy. To others, he's simply Billy Quarantillo. Billy, my man, thank you for the time as we talk this difficult time for everybody, including UFC roster members right now.
Yeah, Jason, thanks again for having me. I know both of us got a lot of free time, especially since, unfortunately they canceled my fight. You wanted to see the cat hat. The people wanted to see the cat hat. I'm here for it. So thanks again for having me, brother.
So of course, I mean, I have to ask maybe the most important question in these trying times, maybe the most important question in the world right now. Where the heck did you get the hat, and how does one become a cat daddy? I must know.
Good. Well, it's actually, I guess it's not the craziest story. So one time, I grew up in Buffalo, New York, a little town outside of there. I was at my Uncle Bill's house probably about 7 years ago, probably like 2013. We were having a party there for my grandmother. And while we were about to leave, I saw this on the back of his coat rack. And I'm like, what is that thing? Like, what do you do? Like, what are you doing with that? And so my family, we were all drinking, hanging out. So I threw it on as a joke. And I kept wearing it the whole night. We were drinking and having fun. And then when I left, I was like, oh, I'm going to keep this. And my uncle's girlfriend, Paula, he's been dating her forever. She was like, oh, no, don't use that. You're never going to use it. I'm like, what, do you guys use it here all the time? So I took it and I use it all the time now, kind of as a joke. And it's just funny, man. It's my cat hat. My fiance hates it. She always jokes that she's gonna throw it out, and it's just funny, man. I'm not trying to play like a fake wrestling character, like we talked about, but it's just fun, man. I like to have fun. Get people to laugh, and it's funny, man. A cat hat. I did a workout there yesterday for my gym. It's all fun, man. I'm trying to make the most of this quarantine.
Do you plan to at least, because I haven't noticed before when it comes to your fights, are is it something you think about? Maybe because you bring that to your walkout to a UFC event or your weigh-in, branding for a fight is important. And if you can make that extra side money on the side from it, I mean, if you can become cat daddy and get t-shirts and all this stuff and just blow up the social, I mean, is it worth it? Is it something you've thought about?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, man. I think that niche thing and it comes natural, but we are at a point now where we're in the entertainment business. I do think I still at the root of things, I think my fighting is going to speak for itself, and I think I'm going to have a good following because of the fighting. People people really like my style, so I think that's going to take it further. I think a lot of these guys with these characters, it comes out, man. If you're not a legit fighter, it doesn't matter how cool your character is. At the end of the day, it's about fighting. That's why I'm still trying to train as hard as I can during these times.
You seem to be, at least from, your Instagram post talking about that your fight was off and stuff like that. You seem to be one of the few UFC fighters to come out and say postponing upcoming events might be in the best interest for everybody. Speak to me as a fighter, as part of the UFC roster, on why you feel that way, because not many of your colleagues on the roster are coming out and saying such things.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. At the end of the day, we're independent contractors. So, that's technically 30% of my, my salary was supposed to be on April 25th. So we're losing out on a lot of money. But at the end of the day, I want my fights. I want to go out there, and we're only gonna have so many chances to fight. And I think it would have been a watered down version because none of us were training at our highest potential. So to me, we wouldn't have been able to cut weight. My weight cut would have been way differently. I wasn't able to get the sparring partners. I was basically training in a garage. I actually had some mats back up right here, and I still have them since we moved in here. So for me, it's like, let's push this thing back a few weeks. No one else is doing anything either. But we're in a different position because I think we still can come back before all these other sports. But at where it's at right now, especially in New York and especially in New Jersey and those areas, it might not be a bad time to let this thing cool down a little bit and put on some real big big shows when we're allowed.
And I'm
to.
glad you brought up 2 points I had planned to ask you questions about. One was finances, and I'll get to that. The first being I wanted to also talk about weight cutting, because weight cutting can compromise the immune system, let alone not being an optimal weight cut as you go make your way to the fight. But traveling and moving around with a very contagious virus out there while you are a bit compromised seems kind of scary. Were you at all worried about that in the lead up to this fight? That, you weight cutting, you're not really at your healthiest, you're putting your body through a bit of a trauma, and then you're, possibly, putting yourself out there for this. Was there kind of like, I don't know about this?
Yeah, and I think a lot of fighters probably don't want to admit that, but a lot of those guys on that, that put together 249 card, that would have been very hard for a lot of those guys. Some of those guys can't make weight anyway, let alone when their nutritionist can't fly there because they have a family. And, not all my corner guys would have been able to come. At the end of the day, I think most fighters still would have shown up because that's just what we do. As an amateur fighter, I remember cutting weight in a car. I remember, cutting weight by running with trash bags. So we're, fighters are used to making that big adjustment, but it would have been, it would have been very tough. I was ready. I signed the contract to fight Gavin Tucker. So if he was ready to go through with it, I was ready to go to cut to 145. But it was going to be kind of tough because I don't think I would have been able to demonstrate 100% of my potential.
And I was talking to a coach, Tyson Chartier. He's the coach for Calvin Kattar last week, and we were talking about, preparing for this and all this stuff. And he was talking about how the UFC, for one, wasn't giving a lot of information for this fight that was supposed to be next week, and they were only limiting 3 people for the corner. They couldn't even bring a sparring partner, all those things. And as a fighter, you're used to all these different things. If you had to pare down the usual people that would show up with you, be it a dietitian and all those kind of things, and nutritionist or whatever, how much does that affect you, especially on fight week? Fight week is where you're really focusing in and getting ready, and you want to hit that routine. How much does that change things? And did you already, were you when your team contacted by UFC, because it was the event after this one coming up?
Yeah, that was we were kind of in the dark, but I think I wasn't really upset with the UFC because I feel like a lot of these companies are. No one was expecting what has happened right now. Everyone's business. I've been talking to people every single day. I talked to someone that, had a great job that have been laid off right now. So I don't think the UFC really knew what to do. What we were doing was how we always gauge. Sorry, let me turn this back. How I always gauge my how I feel leading up to the fight is my sparring. And I remember during a lot of these sparrings, we were still doing sparring sessions. We would meet up once a week, and basically my coach would say, all right, listen, don't expect to be at your potential. Because what I do is I basically do 5-minute rounds with fresh guys. And it was a little bit harder than it usually is for me. But he just kept saying, remember, our opponent has to go through the same thing. So, like I said, I signed up to fight Gavin Tucker. I still plan on fighting Gavin, so we'll see what happens at the end of all this.
Now, going to the financial element of it, one, you talked about this is like a 30% possible loss of what you could make this year, but also, is there an extra financial hit because fighters have to kind of pay for a bunch of things before they even get to the fight? Are you taking a bit of a hit in terms of, paying out some money for the camp, paying out some money for meal prep deliveries, all those, and that kind of stuff? Or because of everything going on, gyms closing, mail delivery not being what it was. What was this camp ending up to be kind of cheaper than other camps usually are, and you're not really taking any kind of hit right now?
Yeah, so I was, I have a good relationship with a lot of my sponsors and a lot of my coaches and everything. My coaches are pretty much, my main coach, Matt Arroyo, is basically my manager anyway. So I was still able to work out at my gym until they shut it down. So I didn't have to lose a lot in there. But again, you're planning on making this money, so I have other expenses. Right. I basically put most of my money into my house, and we don't know how long this is going to last. So we're all in this together. So it is what it is. Hopefully hopefully in a month or two, we're back to normal, and we end up getting those 2 or 3 fights this year.
And talking about all these various elements, the weight cut, the this not being optimal training and stuff like that, is this fight, not getting this fight done, still a disappointment? I'm sure disappointing financially, but is it disappointing, or is it kind of more of a relief? Because to have to compete at the highest of the UFC, knowing all these various elements are not to where you want them, is it part of you is kind of like, it's not that bad?
Yeah. I still think it's kind of both. It's still disappointing because, I'm 31 years old. It took me a while to get into the UFC, and my plan is to, still win 4 or 5 fights in a row, crack into the top 15, and fight for a title. And of course, that takes time. So I just got to get back to work. I got to stay in shape right now. That's what if you follow my Instagram, you see I'm still working my ass off every day. I'm doing some sort of training every day, whether it's just mitt work, whether it's running, doing these home workouts, because that's the goal. That's what we're all in it for. And I want to be at the top in my prime when I'm 32, 33, 34, 35. And, our window's short as fighters. So we're all missing out on that time right now, unfortunately.
And you mentioned before that grew up in New York, you're from New York and stuff like that. I'm in New York City right now, the American epicenter of this pandemic. But the state in general has been hit hard and stuff like that. Do you have any relatives or friends here in the state, here in the city that you kind of worried about because they're in the heat of it like the rest of us?
Yeah. So most of my family lives in Buffalo or like right outside of Buffalo, New York. A lot of people have had it there. My grandmother lives up there. I've been worried about her for a while. She's 90 years old. She was actually in the hospital before all this happened. So she was luckily recovering a little bit, and they actually took her out of the hospital because they were worried about her getting it there. She's been doing better at her house, but of course, I actually just got off the a Zoom chat with all of them. Great to see them. She's doing a lot better. So she's always in the back of my mind, but she's tough, and I think she'll get through this okay.
Is that it? Because we're all kind of dealing with various different things and trying to keep our mental health right now and being confined and all these things. Something like that, like a Zoom chat with all the relatives, kind of like an Easter special kind of thing. Does that really help? Does it make a big difference for you?
Oh yeah, and I'm really close to my family. I don't live around all of them, but I have 3 brothers and a sister, and obviously my parents and my aunts and uncles and my grandmother. So we all stay really close throughout everything anyway. I talk to them every single, at least one of them almost every single day. So we're all really close. It was awesome to see them. It was awesome to see everyone together. I'm gonna keep, I always try to FaceTime them and all that. So I basically had to cancel 2 trips, one up there and then one to Vegas for the UFC PI training. So hopefully, when everything cools down, I'm going to go home and visit everyone and then get ready for this next fight, whether it's with Tucker or with someone else. We're going to be ready to go.
Fighters and athletes, professional athletes in general, have varying relationships when it comes to media. Now, the MMA media has taken heat from some fans, not all fans, for being outspoken against these UFC events happening right now because of the safety concerns. And many of us are in lockdown at home. I know many MMA members are locked down at home, and their jobs are diminished or closed, like myself. Their day jobs away from MMA. Do you think that the heat on the media is warranted on everything, or are fans overreacting like they often can do in professional sports?
Yeah, and it's that old relationship that's always there. Like the media needs the fighters, needs the organization, and the organization and the fighters need the media. Sometimes what a lot of reporters, I think what a lot of reporters were saying were all good stuff. Safety of the fighters comes first, but at the same time, they want to see exciting fights.
I'm glad you crooked too. You didn't hand, you crooked. I much appreciate it.
No, no, I know. I know how it is. Like I don't even want to cough anymore. One cough and everyone's looking at you like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Oh man. So I think for the most part, with what the media members were saying, it was they were looking out for fighters too. I think in these certain situations, a lot of people start panicking and they start saying stuff and they get really aggressive one way or the other. And I don't like that stuff, man. I saw some reporters saying stuff about, how like, the UFC is like the worst thing ever and like all this stuff. And it's like, you guys are following the sport. So let's all work together. There's no reason to tell people they're doing the wrong thing or judging them for it when everyone's just trying to do what's right. They're trying to, the UFCs are trying to put on shows for everyone. Of course, there's a financial side to it, just like every business. But they're also, if the fighters want to fight, let them fight, because I would rather fight and get paid and, take precautions than, sit on the sidelines and wait until next year to fight. So it's a tough situation. I just don't like when people get really aggressive and they act like they know more than they really do, because a lot of these journalists, they're not medical professionals either.
Fair enough, fair enough. So let's talk some good UFC stuff, good news, things positive, and that being your very successful debut for the promotion in December, like I mentioned in the opening. Talk to me about how that entire experience was for you. You know, we talked before that fight, you know, in terms of the fight week festivities, the media day, the weigh-ins, that walk to the UFC cage, like a UFC event instead of Contender Series for the first time. Was it all you had hoped for? Was it even grander than you expected? And how much did having your opponent change the week before add a stress level to that week?
Yeah, so just to start off, I think right now, it like basically solidified for me that I think I made the right decision to stick with MMA for this long. You know what I mean? So I think it was bigger than what I thought it would be. I was hoping for that debut to happen, right after the Ultimate Fighter. That's when I thought I was ready. This time, like I knew I was ready. Like I know now this is when I'm meant to be in the UFC. I'm ready to go on a run right now. And yeah, it's been everything I hoped it would be so far. You just want to get back in there. It almost feels like a dream now, because it's happened a little. It happened a little while ago, and sometimes like I go back and like look at pictures, and I'm like, man, I can't believe that happened. And now you can't even go to a bar right now with more than 5 people. So yeah, it's been a dream come true. I can't wait to get back in there and prove that the first fight wasn't a fluke. I do deserve to be here. I'm on a great winning streak right now, and I just got to keep that momentum going and stay positive.
You dominated in the fight, got the submission win. You have friends, family in the crowd, celebrating, stuff like that. Obviously, you have plans for many more big UFC moments to come, but will that one, and especially like I mentioned, the whole late notice opponent change thing, is that going to be the one you're telling the kids and the grandkids in that house, for in 10 years from now, like, man, that UFC debut, man, it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, probably. There's always the next one's always the biggest one. But but when I first moved to Tampa, this was always my goal to get in the UFC. I'm really big on like goal oriented and writing down goals, and that was one of the biggest ones. And it was like, you're moving to Florida to get away from, to basically be by yourself and to focus on this goal of being a world champion. But that the biggest step before that is to get in the UFC, because if you're not in the UFC, to me, I won a King of the Cage world title, but it didn't even like, it was great. It was great to win and everything, but I'm like, this isn't like the world. I want the world title. Like, and that's, to me, it's always been about the UFC, to get into the UFC, to chase that world championship. And when I didn't make it on the Ultimate Fighter, and then I lost, 2 fights after the Ultimate Fighter, I got, the first time ever losing by finish. I was in a pretty dark spot, and that's I think that on top of everything else was the chip on the shoulder I needed to really push forward, and to know, if I lose one more fight, this might be it. So I've won 7 fights since then, 1 boxing match. I've had a broken hand, torn ACL. None of it slowed me down, and I'm just gonna keep moving forward. Even this coronavirus, I'm gonna come out better from this, and I'm gonna keep climbing the rankings.
Talk to me about how you have kept sane with all the social distancing and stuff like that. Last time we talked, you mentioned how you love living in Florida and going out, enjoying the beach and outside activities. Has that been curtailed because of all this? Are you doing a lot of new things to fill the time? And kind of now with the situation, do you kind of worry like, I mean, at least the last couple weeks, I had a fight to focus on. That was where my mind could be. I didn't have to worry about too much of the drama. Now I don't have that. So you're like, geez, now I really got to keep my mind focused because I don't have this to look at anymore.
Yeah. It definitely keeps changing. So, like I told you to start, we just moved into my new house. I moved in on Tuesday. So I haven't even been here for a full week yet. And in that time period, I moved in on Tuesday, and they officially canceled our fight on Friday. So up until this point during the quarantine, I was fight mode, also closing on this house. I was my own real estate agent during this closing. So I closed on the house myself. Then it was, all fight. And then now, since they canceled it, I see a lot of other people that are like getting fat and being lazy and using this as a chance to reset. I don't want to lose that momentum that I had. So I'm going to be kind of a psycho and get obsessed with working out and fitness and staying in shape, because I don't want to put all that time in and then still come out of this thing slower, less strong, not as conditioned. So I'm gonna keep going forward. I'm gonna come out of this thing just an
Now,
animal.
knock on wood, hopefully, assuming I keep my jobs, we'll probably finally move out of the hood this summer or something like that, hopefully. But I've heard,
Good,
I've
good luck.
heard moving is just terrible. So what has your moving, packing up, packing out, what's your experience like? Are you you're set up in the house, everything's normal, or you're still slowly working through it all?
Yeah, we're so I'm lucky enough to I got a bunch of guys at the gym that I coach, so I'm like, I'm obviously in the UFC, but I also coach a bunch of amateur fighters and some guys that are like going pro right now. So it was kind of easy. I called 3 of the amateur fighters on my team, and I moved a lot of like the little stuff before, and these 3 guys are savages. They came over, and the four of us took everything out. I just rented a U-Haul. They took everything out in about a half hour, brought it here, probably got done in 2 hours total. But now everything's just everywhere in my house. So if there's any good thing that can come from the quarantine, it's we have to be stuck here. I was supposed to be in Virginia training with Ryan Hall this past week. So cause he's got his fight coming up and I got my fight, and I had to cancel that, unfortunately. But it has given me a chance to stay home and just pack all my crap up and move everything. I got mats in the one room, and I got a little boxing area out here, so it's been pretty good.
So, I mean, we talked also a little bit the last time, and just, things you do for fun. You told me about, wanting to travel. Also talked about, like, the Game Changers on Netflix. We watched that kind of stuff. Like, so what else have you been doing? Because, yeah, you can train, you can do all these things, but, you got to relax. You got to kind of just, decompress and enjoy the time. But you can't go out and go to the beach. So what have you been doing at home? Some of the other things. Are you binge watching? I've watched all of Narcos Mexico season 2. I've watched all of Ozark season 3. I'm watching old WWE things. Like, what have you been doing?
Yeah. So actually, honestly, it sounds, like kind of a boring answer, but since we've moved, I have like the house was fully refurnished, but it was just it was like missing a lot of stuff. I'm not super handy, but I know a little bit. So what I've been doing is honestly like putting stuff away. It needed like my house needed a mailbox, so I put a mailbox up. I had to do like the concrete. One of my buddies helped me out with that. We had to move everything in here. I just went and got the mats this morning, so I had to go and get these 2 mats. They were at a warehouse that was like an hour away. Putting everything in different rooms. We had to set the cable up yesterday. I've actually been to the Home Depot about 10 times, and I hate going there, and especially right now, I feel bad about the quarantine. But we just had so many things that are missing in my house that it's a good time to kind of redo all that stuff. I haven't really been watching a ton of TV because up until 2 days ago, I was literally training for this fight, and I was so worried about the weight cut. I was running like crazy and doing so much conditioning. It was just nonstop, working.
How much, like, where were you in terms of, like, I know every fighter wants to be at a certain point the week before, then fight week. Where were you in terms of your weight cut? Were you in a good place, or you were kind of off, a little bit off of where your normal is, and that made you?
Yeah, I was. So I don't want to get into too many numbers just because I know there's a lot of scouts out there, but I'll say I was about 4 pounds heavier than I normally am at the same time. And then I was also in my head, because a lot of times if I'm a little heavy, what I'll do is I'll do my regular workouts, but then I'll go and chill in a hot tub or chill in a sauna at like one of the gyms around here. But they were all closed, so I knew it was gonna be a lot less calories and a lot more physical, like running and biking and swimming, and less like water cutting. So it was I was ready to do it. I agreed to the fight. I was ready to go, but I knew it was going to be a tough weight cut.